Well, hello everybody. Thanks for taking some time this afternoon to come learn about cloud data services. The art of the possible. Well, we'll get into the title here in a little bit. My name's Rob Beal, for those of you who don't know it. I've worked for IBM about 15 years now and been in the data industry longer than I care to admit. You can tell by the hair. Probably 30 years, maybe more. Anyway, been working with, started off with Informix, as you can see, as we were talking about, as a consultant back in the 90s, and came over to IBM with the acquisition back in 2000. So that's kind of my lineage. I was in consulting for a while, and then I came over to what I like to call the gray side. I'm a technical sales specialist now, so I kind of like to de-emphasize the sales and emphasize the technical end. So anyway, I'd like to talk about today is just kind of an overview of a high level of all the data services that are out on the cloud presented by IBM, and just kind of go into what's happening with clouds, in general. And then we have some use cases about how people are using these technologies to improve their business and speed things up. And if you guys like to throw some things in and ask questions or tell me what you're interested in and why cloud has an interest for you. Why are you guys here today? I mean, how many people here are currently doing anything on the cloud? Okay, what are you doing?
I am doing Bluemix. I am doing BlueWorks Live,
Okay.
and I'm also doing ODM 8.7.
Okay. How about you?
Just Orange.
Okay, just experimenting a little bit? Okay. All right, so let's see here. So why even think about cloud? Okay. I got kind of a mantra for cloud. Fast, easy, cheap. Take nothing away from this presentation, just remember those three words: fast, easy, cheap. Or maybe inexpensive would be a better word. So faster innovation, okay, how many people have, working for a big company or even small companies, you have a project in mind, you want to do something, and okay, we got to go get the equipment. Oh yeah, we got to have a budget for the equipment because of the big capital expense. Oh, we got to go to a board and ask for more money, or and it's probably a good couple of months before you even order the equipment. Then you order the equipment. It takes 4 or 5 weeks to get it delivered and set up, and then by the time you get stuff in there and you're ready, you just like spin up a database. It's been 3 months. Does that sound pretty typical to a lot of people's processes in their companies?
I wish it was only 3 months.
Yeah, maybe I'm being optimistic here. Okay, so with the cloud implementation, you basically, a couple clicks out in the cloud for most things. It's a couple clicks, you put in your credit card, and you go. And it's literally that simple. Better IT economics, not a huge upfront investment. You can go out there and say, well, let's try this idea out. And it's going to cost me maybe a couple $100 for a month's worth of time on the cloud. Doesn't work, well, you're out a couple $100, but how many people have budgets that are like in the millions? I mean, a couple $100 is really, you put it on your credit card, and it's a operational expense, not a capital expense. So it's much easier for lines of business to go out there and kind of work independently from IT, which will make some of your IT managers unhappy, but lines of business can try things out, and if it works, they can expand it. And in the cloud, you can scale things up, especially with IBM. And you haven't, if it doesn't work, you're not out that much money. That kind of leads to the lower risk of failure. A lot of ideas get squashed right away because it just costs too much money to try them out, just because of the reasons I just talked about. With something in the cloud, it's very simple to go out, and even for free in a lot of cases, you can spin up, like for DashDB, you can spin up a database and try something out, play with it for a couple of weeks. Doesn't work out, you're not out any money, just your time. So that's, the economics and the basic three things that are driving people to the cloud. Like I said, fast, easy, cheap. Okay. So what does IBM have to offer for database as a service? Basically, we have four things out there. Okay. I'm just talking in the database, data store realm. There's probably 100 things out there on Bluemix that you can play with. But strictly database speaking, we've got DashDB, which is a analytics platform for warehousing. We've got Big Insights, which is Hadoop with a lot of extra bells and whistles that I'll get into. From a transactional basis, there's Cloudant, which is a NoSQL database, and I'll get into that as well, what that's all about. And SQLDB, which is your basic vanilla transactional database, which is actually DB2 under the covers, but don't count on it being DB2 because it might be in Formix in a few months. So. It's all ANSI standard SQL, so it shouldn't really matter. And kind of the point is there that you don't really have to worry about what the database is underneath the covers because IBM manages all this. You don't have to worry about availability, you don't have to worry about power, about cooling. You just have to be able to connect to it and load your data. We've even got services out there to do the data loads as well. That's for another presentation. And oh, by the way, based on a research project done by 451 Research in England, IBM has the most satisfied customers for cloud-based. And by the way, that was commissioned by Microsoft, not by IBM, so it adds a little bit of credibility to that. So, all the IBM cloud things, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, IBM went out and acquired a company called SoftLayer. SoftLayer is a little bit unique in the world of cloud. There's a lot of, I'm sure everybody's heard of Amazon services. I think Microsoft's got something out there for cloud-based services. Most of these cloud-based services are spin-up virtual machines. Usually it's VMware or some sort of hypervisor type of a setup. SoftLayer also does virtualized, but with SoftLayer you can get bare metal. That's something that makes it pretty unique in the cloud world. So what the difference is, I'm not sure, has everybody heard of the phrase noisy neighbors? One of the problems you run into is you've got a virtualized environment. You may have a virtual environment for you, it's on the same frame as 2 or 3 other websites or whatever. And if they start getting really busy, guess what? Your part starts slowing down because there's only so many resources to go around, and those virtualized setups usually are set up to share resources. So if you're not that worried about noisy neighbors, go with the virtualized setup. And SoftLayer provides that as well. But if you're concerned about consistent performance, then you want to go bare metal. And that's usually pretty important for databases especially, because databases can be pretty resource intensive. So, all the things I've talked about, the database as a service, services are based on something called Bluemix. And Bluemix is kind of a conglomeration of many different tools, templates. Boy, there's just tons of stuff out there. If you want to develop an app, you can go out there. If you want to set up a web service, you can go out there. If you want to need a web server, you need to do integration. We even let you spin up, competitor stuff. I think we got Mongo out there. We got MySQL out there. So it's not just limited to IBM stuff. So Bluemix in and of itself is a pretty good resource for cloud-based development. And that's all based on SoftLayer. So IBM with SoftLayer can help you deliver to your organization a very wide range of tools out in the cloud that helps whatever you want to do from a data management point of view be fast, easy, cheap. Okay? So any questions so far? Go ahead.
When you've got software out there, IBM software, do you get to say which version of it you want to be running, or it's always going to be the newest upgraded version?
It's going to be the newest. And matter of fact, in a lot of cases, it gets updated pretty frequently. So you
So
don't
every time
have
a
to
new
worry about
batch
that.
comes out, it's loaded automatically.
Yeah, yeah.
Which could cause problems.
Could, but that goes for a lot of things. They drop a new release every Thursday, every 5 weeks. And obviously, it's going to go through Q&A and everything. They're not going to just drop things out there. Yeah, but that's one of the points of cloud is you don't need to worry about that stuff. If it breaks, then we got support you can call, and you know, it runs the usual process. So, yes.
Is SoftLayer only bare metal?
No, you can do virtual as well. Yeah, you can actually go down to just infrastructure. You can spin up just a Unix environment.
Okay, and whether you do one or the other, are you able to not only back up your data, but take the virtual machine with you?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because it seems like a lot of VPS organizations only will let you back it up. They won't let you take the VM. Like if you want to bring it on premise or go with a third party, a different provider.
Yeah, that I do not know. I do know we support on-premise and hybrid. So SoftLayer, you can spin up a lot of these things on-premise. So, you know, with Cloudant you can do on-premise, DashDB you can do on-premise. Actually, DashDB is really just DB2 Blue. Well, it's a little more than that, but I'll get into all that. So, yeah.
And to your point, to the point of virtualize, I think we've got the multi-tenant scenario, and then depending on your needs, I think we can set up a more private-like virtualized environment aside from bare metal. So it's kind of like two virtualized options and then one bare metal.
Well, I'm not
Different
really,
price points probably.
I'm really not talking about privacy. I'm talking about the ability to move to a different apartment building.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not sure the answer to that either.
Yeah.
As far as taking it with you. But
I know with VMware, I work with VMware a lot. You know, you just pick up the files and move it someplace else. I'm not sure if they.
it's not a technology question, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Go ahead.
With Cloudant, you can move across 4 different infrastructure providers. And you just replicate the data and move it. That's not like picking up the VM, but you can
Yeah.
take your data and just replicate it to another provider.
Yeah, like what she's saying, you know, Amazon supports cloud, and let's see some of the other ones. There's another one. Rackspace. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was just interested in knowing.
Or you want to take it on premise, we
How, if any, SoftLayer fits into that type of.
well, SoftLayer, if you start off on SoftLayer, you could, you know, migrate it to Rackspace. Actually, you could coexist, like, you know, have, you know, in Dallas you may be on SoftLayer, and in San Francisco you might be on Rackspace. I know the local server for SoftLayer here is Rackspace.
One other quick question. I know I've got 3 different accounts out there. 2 of them I use a regular URL through my browser. One of them I have to go through a special VPN. Does that mean one is a VM and the other 2 are?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what that, because pretty much everything in Bluemix you get through
Those,
this
yes,
public.
but like the ODM 8.7, I have a special VM that I connect to the VM and then it takes me through to the cloud.
I like to think of it as you got a private network set up there, right? For
They,
that,
yeah,
versus-
IBM set it up. This is for
Right.
beta testing
But it
their
may be
products.
for you, so no one else gets to it. I mean,
Right,
there may be,
okay.
right.
Is that-
Something was set up.
Probably
for you
because it's
guys.
beta.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that's something else to kind of point out. A lot of people, rightly so, are concerned about security for sensitive data. You can set up encrypted databases, you can set up SSL connections, you can set up private networks. We could have a discussion about security at some time if you wish, but that's all supported. All right, so let's get into just what the different options are here. So IBM Cloudant. So Cloudant is, does anybody ever heard of NoSQL? JSON? Oh, yeah. So basically, NoSQL is kind of a misnomer. It actually stands for not only SQL. It's not NoSQL. But But it does, you can use SQL to access it, but there are other more efficient methods. It's basically, I have to admit, I'm not a JSON expert, but to me it looks like XML on steroids. It's a self-describing document, and you store it as a file, in Clouded, and you access it through a RESTful API. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is what the dashboard looks for Cloud. You go out and create a database. There's things for loading up data. You can load it from a local file set. You can go out and access a file that's out in the cloud, like say you've got data that's out in Amazon, or maybe there's some public data that you want to put into it. There's some demos I've seen where you upload weather data that's in a JSON format, and you can put it into a cloud. Replication, you can set up replication to have Cloudant exist on multiple geographics. So, I think I've got a map here someplace about where all the data centers are that support Cloudant, but it's all over the globe.
It's the same as your software.
Yep, okay. So, but there's also the other non-software support as well that's out there. So we've got a use case out there. Well, I'll get to the use case where that played a part, but basically you can set up replication for both high availability and also for kind of co-location of data. So you want to, say you've got a lot of customers over in Asia, we can put it in Shanghai or Hong Kong, I'm not sure where it is, and it's much closer to your customers in Asia where they need to get at, so they don't have to wait for the data to flow across the big cable that's under the sea, or the satellite, or whatever, okay? Warehousing, and I think this is really cool. Warehousing allows you to set up a clouded database and replicate it to a DB database for warehousing. So it's basically a NoSQL JSON document database. It'll convert it to SQL and put it into a DB database and allow you to run heavy-duty analytics on that data that you collect with Cloudant. That's really kind of exciting because usually Cloudant is used for mobile apps. There's a lot of other use cases, but quite often it's a mobile app that's using this. It's what everybody's kind of into these days. Well, you can take all this data you've been collecting with your mobile app, push it over to DB, and then start doing some heavy-duty analytics. And it's pretty fast. You can actually use that to feedback into your app. And I know there's a lot of possibilities. Let's just put it that way. Okay. So, how the heck did that happen? My phone is talking to me. It's not supposed to do that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Cloudant. So the thing about NoSQL and JSON documents, it's very scalable, kind of like XML. It's very elastic. You can add new fields to the table. Different data types are supported. You don't have to go to your DBA to ask permission to create a new table. You just start using it. The data can exist in many different locations and be synchronized across many different locations. There's also APIs in there to support text search and geospatial. And you can get this as a fully managed database as a service through SoftLayer and DataMix, or Bluemix, I mean. Or you can have it on-prem or have some sort of a hybrid there. So it's basically, I don't know if you guys ever heard of CouchDB. It's a big open source database. So Cloudant is basically CouchDB, but it's been taken to another level where it can be multinodal. It's very scalable. I don't know, Joanne, what do you think is the biggest Cloudant app out there in terms of data size? Do you know?
Data set I don't, but we had to demonstrate that we could support 1 billion concurrent users.
Okay.
That answers the question.
Yeah. So it's very scalable. And basically what they do is they just keep adding nodes. So it's pretty amazing, actually. For the text search, they use Lucene. It's an open source API that's pretty popular. If there's anything I haven't mentioned here. I don't think so. So let's get into some of the use cases. Oh, here's a map. It's not very good math. I think that's kind of limits. I think there's more locations than that, but the idea here is that it's all over the planet.
I think, Rob, the one other thing on your other chart was, the reason we showed the mobile device there is actually replicate data to the mobile device as a peer database node. And because of that, you can actually operate with the device disconnected. So if for some reason you're in an unfriendly network zone and you want to use the application, add some new information, whatever, you can do that. And once you go back to the network friendly zone, it will automatically replicate and sync back.
Yeah,
So that's the disconnected access that you get.
yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Joanne. Okay, a couple of use cases. First use case, Comdata. Comdata was a kind of a logistic support company, and they basically supported different trucking companies for logistics, and it gave them the capability to go out and find the best place for gas, and gave them a way to pay for it, and pumped it back to a central location. The use of Cloudant helped them deploy a new app for competitive reasons in less than half the time they originally thought it would take. So these guys thought it would, basically they wanted an app that would give truck drivers a capability to find the closest gas station with the best price, and then guide them to it, and then give them a way to pay for it off their cell phone. And then it would track all that information, and they did some sort of analytics along the way that helped them figure out, okay, this truck driver likes these gas stations, so it would be able to show them their preferred gas station if they wanted to see it that way. But also, they would pump it into a warehouse where they could do some checks for fraud. So they originally thought it was going to take 20 months to roll this out, and they needed to do it quicker than that, so they came to us and did it on Cloudant, and got it done in 9 months. So here's a little architecture diagram. You have multiple devices talking to, mobile first was just kind of like an app server, which talked to Cloudant, and then they get some geolocation data off of DB2, and then I think they were pumping it back there for the analytics. Okay, another use case that this is kind of cool. It's kind of a non-mobile, which is I kind of like, because it means that you can use Cloudant for some pretty interesting uses without having to do it on a cell phone. Basically, this is a research institution for financial data. It's actually right down the street, but I can't tell you who it is. And they used Cloudant as, I kind of like to think of it as a data cache for Netezza. So let's do a little bit of a description on that. So basically, these guys had a big Netezza box. They were running analytics on it, but they had to support hundreds of users. And after they added a lot of users, things started getting slow for them. So they came up with a scheme that we helped them with, where they would pull the initial report request back to Cloudant, cache it in Cloudant, and then do all of their scrolling back and forth and reporting off of Cloudant. And then other users could access the same data if they were going after the same thing. So being a schemaless architecture, they were able to accommodate all these different reportings that were coming off in Netezza quite easily, because they didn't have to go out and create a new table for every report that was coming off of there. Plus, they were able to replicate it across from this area over to Asia, so their Asian customers could get at the data faster. Here's the way that worked. Won't go through the details here, but they'll be in the slides. Big help to this company. So that's all I have to say about Cloudant. Any other questions? Kind of a high-level overview. All right, DashDB. How many people know what Blue is? DB2 Blue. Okay. Basically, DB2 Blue is a columnar database that runs mostly in memory. And what DashDB is basically DB2 Blue under the covers. but it's also taken some of the in-database analytics that was in Netezza and integrated that into the engine. So you can move all that really complicated, predictive analytics down closer to the data, and runs that all inside of DashDB. So what you're looking at here is the initial splash screen for that. I've got a demo for this if you guys want to come and see it sometime, but basically it's in a couple of clicks you can go out and deploy a fully operational warehouse environment. Now, right now it's limited to about 10 terabytes. Down the road we're going to be, probably later on this year, it's going to be expanding to where it's, instead of running on just one node, it'll be partitionable, where it'll run across multiple nodes. And then it's, the sky's the limit as far as the scalability goes. So this is pretty exciting stuff. Very simple to go out and deploy it. If you have your schema ready to go, you can literally have things created and spun up in a matter of minutes. Then all you have to do is start loading your data. And you don't have to worry about indexes. You don't have to worry about managing the disks underneath. IBM takes care of all that. Basically, you create the database and create your tables, and you get all your connection information. It even gives you like a little script you can run to set up an ODBC connection. It's kind of slick. So, and it also works with all the other tools in Bluemix. Plus anything we had an earlier presentation, Cognos hooks up to it, real nice. And you can use Cognos or any other reporting tool to get at it. So, I kind of talked about this already. Blue acceleration, Netezza in database analytics. It integrates pretty much seamlessly with Cloudin. As I said, from the Cloudin side, you can click on a button. It'll go out and create the database, the Cloudin database in Dash, and then you can set up replication for you. And it's truly just load and go. And you don't even have the option to create indexes. It just creates indexes for you. Now we can go into some of the details about Blue. I could talk to you later about how Blue works, but it's pretty slick. So coming in second quarter, I talked about MPP. There's an Oracle compatibility mode. So if you have Oracle tables with the Oracle data types and some Oracle scripts you want to run against it, like store procedures, you can load that up in there as well. Keep adding more and more. I think right now somebody told me that we've got like 40% of all the Netezza in database analytics. They just keep putting more of that stuff in. So by the end of the year, we should have close to 100% of all the Netezza in database analytics. So any questions on DashDB technically wise? Got a couple of use cases to talk about. Yes?
How does it handle purging of data?
What do you mean in terms of, like, if you delete a bunch of data, does it clean up after itself in terms of the table spaces? And
Right, like is it like a traditional database or?
it pretty much takes care of it. There's a data reclamation. It doesn't really do reorg with the columnar tables, but it does the equivalent of a reorg underneath the covers. And you basically don't have to worry about that anyway, because IBM, it's managed as a service. You just put your data in there and run your queries. And we take care of the performance.
Can you set up like scheduled purges and stuff like that?
I don't think so. I think it's all, IBM does that. And when you set up, if you've got a large database where that sort of thing is important, they'll take care of it. So it's database as a service. You just pump the data in and run queries.
If I have Blue today, like I've already implemented Blue,
Mhm.
can I take the Blue data that I have and replicate it out to Dash to create a new warehouse?
Well,
Or do
yeah, you could replicate it, I suppose, because it's all being logged when you insert new data. in most cases. I don't see why not. Or you could just copy it out to Dash. Because really, they are basically the same thing. The only thing Dash has that Blue, in your premise does not have is the in-database analytics. From a technical standpoint. So, use case one, we had a food distributor required better insight into its sales. Basically, it was a small shop, zero analytics experience, really needed some help with their analytics. They realized that they needed some analytics to help their sales. So they took the data out of Oracle, put it into a DB2 Blue, and were able to access it seamlessly using Tableau, which is another reporting application. And they did this all without a DBA. So this kind of gives you an idea of the architecture. Replicated data from Oracle into its the Dash DB, and then started hitting it with Watson and Tableau. That's another thing too. Once it's in Dash, actually I think Watson Analytics, if you just go to Watson Analytics and load up data, it's actually Dash DB where it stores it under the covers.
Quick question.
Yes,
Can the cloud and data be replicated into the Dash DB also?
I'm sorry?
Can the cloud and data be replicated into Dash DB also?
Absolutely, yeah. Now it's kind of one way. You can't go from Dash DB back to Cloudant, but it's basically to give you like high level of analytic capability against the Cloudant data. And then you can set it up where Cloudant will automatically replicate to the Dash.
What about the company tables that they want to put it out as a service? Does it need to be company's tables that they have or databases? Can they be run as a service through the Cloudant mechanism, or they need to be replicated into the Cloudant database? Then only they can use it.
Are you talking like being able to take data that's on premise and replicate it into Dash?
Have their own tables, right? Own
Mhm.
databases being created.
Mm-hmm.
They want to put it out on the cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one way is don't use that, just use the cloud and create tables and all that stuff, right? And copy the data.
Yeah, you can set it up where there are some tools in Bluemix which will do replication. So you can actually set up a replication tool in Bluemix or with your own replication tools. It doesn't really matter. Once you have a connection to the database, it's just a data source that you dump
Or
data
it's
into.
just the database that you can use. You cannot take your own database and put it in the cloud and use it.
Yeah, you can do that too. Just move everything out there. That's true too. And you could set it up to be kept in sync with your own in-house ETL tools. So it all supports. If you go to Dash and set it up, there's actually a tab on the side that says connection info, and it gives you like the user ID, the password, the host name, the port number, all the information you need to connect up to it. And you just plug that into your replication tool, or you plug it into your ETL tool, and Dash DB is now just another data sync. Sure.
One of the aspects of my job is database monitoring.
Okay.
So, say we replicated all our tables up into Dash, and we have users around America getting that database. How would I find out who accessed what, when, and where, from where?
Good question. There are some monitoring tools, but keep in mind that Dash is just, it's database as a service, so
Right.
there really is no need for you to monitor for performance purposes.
Not monitoring.
But there is a way for you to see who's connected to it currently. I think we could probably set something up. Let's put it this way. DB2 Blue under the covers has the capability to do that. Whether it's made available through Dash, I'm not sure. The whole idea is it's just the service. It's out there in the cloud and you just access
So
it.
to monitor and check out logs and all that stuff.
Right. Currently, we use another ID to do that, however.
Guardium by any chance?
Yeah.
You don't sound thrilled.
No, it's fine.
Again, that's where it is today, right, Rob? So we're
Right.
gonna keep enhancing it, and you'll see more and more functionality and capabilities.
Yeah, if this
Dash
becomes like,
moving forward.
if this becomes something that, because I mean, the capability, technically it can be done. It's just whether it's offered out there as a service and it's exposed. So that's a good point. I'm not sure if you can do that at this point, but if people want to do that, or if you sign a big contract with IBM, I'm sure we can work something out. Yes?
Is there any kind of, is there a document that might have a list of interfaces that DashDB supports? I mean, one you mentioned, ODPC.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm talking not only about being able to export data, but to import, for example, connecting to a Hadoop database or something like that.
I could probably find it. It does support, ODBC, JDBC, .NET. Basically, anything that DB2 supports, Dash would support. But I think there would I'd be surprised if there wasn't like a matrix of saying, okay, here's the ones we
Here's
support.
the ones.
Yeah, and that's something I could probably find. I'd be surprised that that doesn't exist. Any more questions? Got one more use case here for Dash. Car manufacturer. This is where it was using, I think, Cloudant was involved. It was using Cloudant to connect. Let's see here. This is probably a little bit better way to talk about it. It was using Cloudant to access data off of the vehicle, and then replicating it over to DashDB, and then using DashDB for analytics, and then taking that information and pumping it into Salesforce.com.
And it actually, I know a little bit more.
Okay.
They started with, well, the problem they're trying to solve is they're trying to change the in-car experience of the driver. And so it's all being put through their in-screen system. And they wanted to be able to take location data from the car and map that to personal preference data. And so that they can actually deliver loyalty prompts through that screen to the driver. And they start, all of the data on the automobiles are actually sitting in Salesforce.com. So they pulled the data out of Salesforce, pulled it in the JSON environment. So now you can map the car owner's data with the actual data that's coming in off the car as to where it is. We can do geospatial indexing there. And then you can do the analytics back on Dash, some other information to say what offers based on who I am driving that car would make sense for me to do that.
So they can tell them there's a sale on chicken at the grocery store when they're close to it.
Exactly. So it's kind of a closed loop view around loyalty. Is it who would buy that car? But it's your choice. You can turn it on, turn it off. It's based on.
It's an opt-in kind of thing. You have to opt into it.
But that's the concept.
There's actually a couple different stores who are doing that sort of thing too now. They're not necessarily with DashDB, but you log in to their app, like Kohl's I think does it. They log into their in-store app and they track where you are in the store. And if you buy something here, they'll say, and you're walking by the men's department, let's say you bought some shoes and you're walking by the men's department and say, oh, here's a coupon for ties.
Credit card companies, I'm sure, are thinking about that
Mhm.
as well, right, based on their reward programs. And oh, you're close by, you can go here, here's a
Yeah, exactly.
coupon, just use your card.
All right. So that's it for Cloudant and for DashDB. We'll talk a little bit about Big Insights. I have to put some caveats here because I am not a Big Insights / Hadoop kind of expert, but I have played around with this a little bit. So basically what Big Insights is it's IBM's open source Hadoop distribution on the cloud, plus all the Big Insights tools that go around. And there's probably a couple dozen different tools. Some of them are open source tools and some of them are DB2 or not DB2, IBM specific. Just a couple of things specifically, there's something called Big SQL. It'll take regular SQL against your unstructured data stored in Hadoop and convert the SQL to MapReduce programs to go out and read your Hadoop files. Another thing called Big Sheets lets you visualize the data in kind of like an Excel-like environment. So these are things that all come along with Big Insights. So it's for multi-node clusters, enterprise. I'll let you read the things here. But it's basically Hadoop in the cloud. It's scalable and a lot of tools alongside of it. And it also lets you do things to scale dynamically. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that are out there. There's tools for visualization, for development. There's advanced, a couple different kinds of MapReduce programs, different ways to connect to it. So we take native Hadoop and we enrich it. In most cases, it's faster than out-of-the-box open source Hadoop. We've got built-in R, streaming and text analytics, and easy to integrate. So here's another use case. Pharmaceutical company wanted to do some analytics on electronic medical records for a new obesity drug that they were testing. Like I said, get skinny fast, I can sure use it. But anyway, they wanted to take these EMR records and put them into a data lake, basically, with Hadoop and analyze them. But they didn't have the in-house hardware to spin it up on, so they came to IBM in the cloud and spun up a Big Insights data center within 48 hours. And within 48 hours, they were able to start getting value out of it. So, what can you do now? Go to bluemix.net, give yourself an ID, and start exploring. I've got a demo that you can look at that we can do outside, because I think my time is almost up here. But I can walk you through creating a Bluemix or a dash DB and populating it and running some SQL against it. So if anybody's interested, I'm at the monitor right outside. Any more questions? All right, just remember, fast, easy, cheap. Thanks very much.